becoming a better team. Everybody wants to do it, but how do front offices pursue those interests? Well, typically through one of three things: the draft, trades, and free agency. And of course, development. Of course, development, especially for the Raptors. But they've done the draft. Trades are now available to them if they so choose. And now we are on the eve of free agency. And I've compiled a list of considerations for the Raptors that I think would make their team better. And I'm going to talk about all those guys. But before I do, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm told it helps. First up is Lonnie Walker. He's a 6'5" wing/guard out of San Antonio, and they will not be extending the qualifying offer to him, which means he will be an unrestricted free agent, free to join whoever wants to pay top dollar or matches his interests. The Raptors have a lot of unique athletes on the roster who succeed in different ways, but if Lonnie Walker joins the squad, he's immediately the guy with the most pop. With Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., the Raptors have arguably the worst backcourt in the NBA when it comes to getting to the rim and finishing there. Walker, despite not being elite at either, is a significant step up from both and a worthy change of pace. The Raptors seem destined for a lot of lineup staggering, and there should be ample opportunity for Lonnie Walker to work off ball and punch gaps off of long closeouts and work his spot up threes back up toward the decent numbers of his two previous seasons. Along with that, he provided a bit of a pop as a pick and roll scorer for the Spurs last season, and there's plenty of reason to think he can give the Raptors a little bit of juice there in second side action. All in all, a much higher floor and ceiling than the Raptors have come to expect from their bench guards. And if you're still hung up on Vision 6'9", Walker also has a plus wingspan that sits 2 inches longer than Gary Trent Jr.'s and 2 inches shorter than Delano Banton's. If the Raptors' defensive culture is as good as it seems to be, there's no reason why the Raptors can't weaponize Walker's length and athleticism on that end better than the Spurs have. Lonnie has different defensive strengths than Gary Trent Jr., of course, a slinky screen navigator versus uncanny and accurate hands, but we're looking directly at a guy that turned defense from a negative to a plus, more or less, with the Raptors. There's a reasonable expectation to believe that his price on the open market soars north of where the Raptors can afford him, but he's one of the dream signings. Second up is Amir Coffey, whose game I love. He's 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan. So if you're looking for the Vision 6'9" fit, that's a check mark. But he also has intriguing ball skills, and on his last 300 attempts from the NBA three-point line, he's shooting over 38%. And given his length and his defensive proclivities, we could see another guy who turns defense from a negative into something closer to a positive with the Raptors. You can put him in lots of the Raptors' weave action and handoff stuff, and I think you'd be really happy with his reads. I think he's the exact type of player who would enhance a lot of the Raptors' no-guard lineups that they fell in love with as change of pace minutes last season. He would hit all the staples necessary. Find the cutting Boucher as a passer, hit catch and shoot threes off of Pascal Siakam's gravity, cut against the weaker strong side to collapse the defense, screen on occasion, and even bring the ball up in transition in a pinch, all of it. And of course, another extremely long pair of arms to shrink the floor on defense. He's been grinding away on two-way contracts. It's time that he got some cash. And the Raptors can be the team that gives it to him. Now, the Clippers have his bird rights, so what they're willing to match, I'm not really sure. But the Clippers probably have the deepest team in the league, and maybe Coffey is someone that they can afford to lose. He's competing with guys like Terrence Mann and Robert Covington for minutes. He would be a super, super fun Raptor. Okay, Mo Bamba, 7'1", 7'8" wingspan, and maybe you're not as excited about the prospect of signing a big in free agency, given that the Raptors just selected Christian Koloko 33rd overall in the draft. But Nick Nurse did allude to the idea of seeing Christian Koloko down at the G League level. The people I've talked to are excited about Koloko's career, but say that it might take some time for him to catch up offensively, so there might be more minutes available in the Raptors front court for the 22-23 season than what we currently think. Bamba also offers the classic upside of a big man who is looking to figure himself out in the second stage of his career, and that happens all of the time. Bamba also started turning corners this past season, hitting 38% of his threes on 4 attempts per game. And while he didn't come close to affecting shots in the paint at the same level as Wendell Carter Jr., that was still a positive for him. We've seen a million different versions of trailer plays that turn into Chicago actions with the Raptors, and Bamba did a lot of that in Orlando, so there's some familiarity and ability to plug in on offense. The Magic saw positive swings on the offensive and defensive glass while Bamba was on the floor. And it's important to remember the Lakers, the Warriors, the Bucks, the Raptors, the last 4 championships, all those teams featured some form of drop defense on their run to the title. It isn't a dead form of defense, it's still alive. If the Raptors can get Bamba on the mid level exception, I think that's a really exciting signing for them. And lastly, we have Bryn Forbes, who I know is underwhelming and doesn't fit a lot of people's idea of how this team looks, but he won't get the full MLE. And maybe if the free agent pool dries up, this is what you're left with to diversify your team a little bit. He might even get the biannual exception at around 4 million. That's all on the table. The allure of Forbes is to protect against the league figuring out how to defend the Raptors' weirdo lineups better. Those big long lineups that the Raptors won a lot of minutes with last year, they survived solely on forced turnovers, offensive rebounds, and Pascal Siakam's wizardry. Maybe this season you don't want Siakam leading the NBA in minutes per game. Maybe teams adjust a little bit better to the onslaught of offensive rebounds, and Bryn Forbes then becomes the little handoff shooter who could, with any of Scotty, Thad, or Boucher running pet handoff plays with him. You can also throw him in against zones to bust teams that way. He'd be very comfortable running any of the zone busting plays the Raptors run for Fred and Gary. He's a remarkably consistent, high level shooter who takes and makes every kind of jumper you want from him. It's not a signing I expect, but it's an interesting wrinkle that the Raptors could choose to pursue for cheap. So that was the free agency wish list. I hope you enjoyed the players named. If you didn't, let me know down in the comments. If you did, let me know down in the comments. And if you think there are better names out there, a big sexy name or a project that maybe only you really like, let me know in the comments. And most importantly, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to stay tuned with Raptors Republic on the YouTube channel, on the website as the off-season coverage continues to roll along and into when the season finally starts up again. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you.